Hey everybody, it's Curse, and today I wanted to bless you with my very first level 100 character in online for last Epoch. Online mode was first introduced for last Epoch together with multiplayer with the 0.9 patch back in March, if I remember correctly. And for a variety of reasons, including the Diablo 4 beta and the Diablo 4 launch, I just never felt like I had enough time to properly level up a character in online all the way to 100 and to do it justice and make it worthy of a build for a build guide. So I'm very happy to finally remedy that and share with you my findings from my very first experience leveling to 100. So in this video, I'm going to talk about my thoughts on Shaman and my current build progress, my itemization and skill setup. This is not going to be a build guide, however. It simply doesn't hit my standards just yet. I need to spend a little bit more time fine-tuning the build and testing things out, and I'll get there eventually, but the itemization is not ideal either. But until then, I'll just share my current findings with you. I'm also going to talk a little bit about some of the online experiences. And 0.92 is hitting in just a few days, so we can cover that a little bit as well if time permits. Anyways, let's jump in. Irashaimase. So here's my Shaman, level 100. And I decided to go with Shaman for my first online 100 character because I didn't have a single Primalist build in my channel. And I didn't even have a single Primalist at level 100. Across all of my offline characters. I had a couple of them around level 30 or 50 or something like that, but never quite pushed any of them to 100. So I wanted to make a build guide and try out a little bit more about Primalist, get better at the class, learn more about it, and have some fun with it. So that's why I went with Shaman, and overall I enjoyed my experience with Shaman. For the first thing I wanted to start with here is I wanted to go over some of the leveling strategies with Shaman. This leveling strategy works for all Primalist classes and it's super smooth. Basically, all you need is Summon Thorn Totem and Spriggan Form. With Summon Thorn Totem, you can get your mana managed better with Memories of Eterra. You can increase the maximum of Thorn Totems spawned through this node. You can even spawn multiple Thorn Totems at the same time at a really high cost with Grove Mind. And especially once you get your mana figured out and your max totem count figured out, you want to get Titan's Bane. That increases your DPS significantly. And then there are a bunch of other good nodes to gain DPS, like Ancient Power is good, Impale is good. Astral Wings is also decent to put 1 or 2 points in, as well as Lethal Thicket. And while you're buffing your Thorn Totem, you basically want to think about getting Spriggan Form as early as possible, regardless of your class. Even if you're Shaman, Spriggan Form is really what makes this build shine and what empowers this build to a new level. And that is because through Spriggan Form, you can convert your healing totems that Spriggan Form gives you into essentially healing Thorn Totem hybrids, which not only dish out just as much damage as Thorn Totems, but also keep you alive really exceedingly well. And that is what makes this build really strong and really easy to level with. You get your healing totems spawned 3 at a time, thanks to this Unbound Garden. And at that point, you're almost invincible unless you get one shot. Because if you don't get one shot, your healing totems are going to max heal you in no time. And that makes leveling really smooth. You're just running around, spamming 3 totems at a time, and melting through content. That's pretty much all you need. So around level 25, you can unlock your Spriggan Form. And probably around level 30, 35, you can have Spike Totems and Unbound Garden. And that's when the build really comes together. So if you're leveling up a Primalist, do give that a try. It's really solid. Otherwise, I tried a few different things with Shaman. I tried Upheaval Totems, and they didn't feel great. I tried Summon Storm Totem, and I still use Summon Storm Totem, but it's just a secondary source of damage. It's not my primary source of damage. I tried to be using Swipe to buff up the totem damage through this node, and it's just due to the duration of both Thorn Totem and Storm Totem being fairly short, you can't really stack that much totem spell damage with this Avatar of Stone, unfortunately. I also tried Summon Stormcrows to dish out damage themselves, but also to buff my totems. That was another iteration of a build that I tried. I don't feel like they add a significant amount. But yeah, the build gets carried by Thorn Totem. And I still have a few different things I want to try. But more importantly, my itemization is not ideal. So let me just highlight over what I've done so far. Based on my experience thus far, and I could be wrong, but I get the sense that the best two prefixes for this kind of build are the minion critical strike multiplier together with spell damage for totems. So that's kind of what you want to have in your chest piece, as well as the implicit of minion spell damage in the chest piece as well. So those three increase the kind of lackluster damage of Thorn Totem and push it to a decent level. With the helmet, you want to have minion crit multi or perhaps spell damage for totems. And you also most likely want to have plus skills for your Thorn Totems. Thorn Totem skill tree has a few good multipliers, so you can't really go wrong over there. And you can see that is something that I'm lacking in my helmet. You can see that I have a minion physical damage implicit, which is pretty solid given that Thorn Totems are physical damage in my current setup. You can convert them to cold damage, and I'll talk a bit about that as well later on. But overall, my helmet and chest are decent. They're not great. My chest has the right prefixes and implicit, but really bad suffixes. My helmet could be improved on as well. My amulet is pretty bad, as you can tell. I really want 100% crit multi on that death rattle. And then what I really want to talk about is the weapons. You can see that right now I have double minion damage in the suffixes of my scepter, as well as in the implicit. So that is a decent option. My offhand, however, is awful. But a really strong alternative to what I have set up right now is to use Apogee of the Frozen Light. That gives you 30% more cold and necrotic damage for your minions to chilled enemies. And getting enemies chilled is trivial. So basically this is up to 33% more damage, as well as +3 to cold minion skills. And obviously this necessitates for us to convert Thorn Totem into cold. And we can do that through these Pillars of Hail Root. So Apogee of the Frozen Light is a really solid option, especially so if you have 1 or 2 LP and you can stick like a tier 7 minion spell damage in there. And it combos really well with Pharaoh's Dagger. Unfortunately, I have not had Pharaoh's Dagger drop yet. And I have not been able to dual wield the two through Harmony of Blades here, being able to equip swords in offhand. But that is one really strong setup, because by equipping Pharaoh's Dagger, you max out your crit chance if you have some int. The other way to max out your crit chance is through these ornate idols. 4% crit chance and 60% minion crit chance. If you have 2 of those, that's 8% base, together with 100 and up to 120% crit chance. That is one way to max your crit chance. But the easier way is Pharaoh's Dagger. So by equipping Pharaoh's Dagger, you can now get rid of these ornate idols and switch them for more tankiness and more hybrid health idols, and just get rid of a lot of the crit chance idols that you have as well, like these 39% minion crit chance. You don't really need that once you get a really strong Pharaoh's and get your int high. So that's something I'm considering and I want to try out as soon as we get a Pharaoh's. And that is one of the reasons I'm not ready to make a build guide on this just yet, because I haven't had the items that I want to try out and test out. So I'll keep on farming until I get that dagger. Otherwise, I'm running Storecarved Testament, which synergizes extremely well with Storm Totem. It also gives us shock, spell lightning damage for your totems. It's quite nice overall. I think I would keep this even if I got rid of Storm Totem, for example. I think this is really solid, even for the 6 spell damage for your totems. Everything else is decent. Not amazing, but decent. These gloves are pretty strong other than the implicit. The boots are decent. My belt is so-so, given the fact that I don't really need that much crit avoidance because I'm running crit avoidance monolith. And my rings are alright as well. Nothing to brag about, really. So honestly, I think my weakest point is likely my weapons. I have to test out that other setup as well as my idols. This being my first online character, I haven't had time to farm up all of the super strong, 5% health, 30 health, 2x1 idols. But once I get a bunch of those, you can expect easily health up to like 3,500. So yeah, that's my skills and item setup. And basically me highlighting what I'm really lacking here and what I really want to test out. Anyways, now let's talk a little bit about Shaman overall. And when we talk about Shaman, there's two main things I want to focus on. One is the passive bonuses you get from the class. Also the passive points past this midline here, which are exclusive to Shaman. So when it comes to passive skill nodes past this midline here, if you look at all of them and you consider which one of these actually improve the damage of your totems, the only one that you'll find is Rune of Awe. And it gives you 16 minion spell damage for 8 points. That's it. Nothing else is really going to give you damage for your minions. There's this Eternal Storm, but that is weirdly conditional on killing a frozen enemy. So it's kind of useless. It's not even that significant. You can get some attunement from Elemental Shrines, but it also comes with mana regen, which is not really that necessary for this build. So overall, the Shaman skill tree is surprisingly weak in terms of exclusive nodes with regards to upgrading your totem's damage, which is counterintuitive, honestly. Now, when it comes to providing defenses, however, it has Protective Circle, which gives you elemental resistances per totem. And given that we're running like 6, 7, 8 totems easily, this essentially maxes out our physical and elemental resistances. So 4 of our resistance types, basically for free. You can max them out for like max. Even if you put 5 points in here, that is nothing in terms of an investment and trade-off to get max 4 res types. This is an incredibly overpowered node and a really, really strong defensive node overall. But other than this one, the Shaman skill tree does not give you very much when it comes to upgrading your actual totems and upgrading your survivability. So that is a little bit disappointing. Take a look at Druid, for example. It also gives you minion spell damage. It's not as good as the Shaman one, granted. And it also is specific to minion spell physical damage. However, if you're actually switching to Cold Thorn Totem, you can get minion cold penetration. And that is really strong. There's also a minion damage node, 8%, which is decent. It's not amazing, but it's all right. So interestingly enough, the Druid exclusive passive skill tree has more minion damage and totem damage support than the Shaman one. And that to me makes little sense. And again, I want to highlight that we don't talk about these skill nodes and passive nodes on the left hand side because those are accessible for both Shaman and Druid. So if you really wanted to spec into them, you easily could do that. So I think one of the reasons that Shaman gets such a bad rep, and I think probably deservingly so, is that the nodes that it has are very weak offensively. It tries to cover too many different areas. It looks like they're trying to make Shaman be viable for melee through these 4 or 5 nodes. And I guess they want to pair that up with Tempest Strike. So I guess Shaman is the Tempest Strike guy. And Tempest Strike is notoriously memey. They also want to make Shaman a spellcaster. So there's a lot of spell damage support, spell damage per active totem, etc., etc. And they also want to make it the totem guy. So I think Shaman tries to cover too many different areas and ends up being good at none of them. So the Shaman passive skill tree, I think, definitely needs a rework. So let's see in which direction they take it. Other than that, the passive bonuses for Shaman, I think, are actually quite decent. 10 attunement is nice. Minus 5 totem mana cost can be build defining. And then 50% elemental resistance when you control a totem. That's quite nice. That is multiple tier 7 suffixes that you don't need to worry about. I hope the Shaman spells get some love as well. It's ironic, but the one build that last Epoch has seen for Earthquake has been a Werebear build. So hopefully we see a lot of love for all these spells to make them more viable, because currently they're more utility than anything else. They're not main DPS sources. So there you have it. My thoughts on Shaman and my experiences in getting to level 100 in online mode. Finally! I'm no longer an offline scrub, guys. I did it. I decided to not post this video until I saw the 0.92 patch notes, just to make sure none of what I'm saying gets invalidated by the patch. It looks like it should be alright, and I'm not gonna lie, some of the patch notes make me a little bit sad. We'll see whether I have time to do a video going through them, but overall, Runemaster should be fun. So I hope to see all of you on Thursday. And before I wrap things up, major thanks to MadPickle for helping me level, and Ucasuni and everybody else in the channel for teaching me a lot about Shaman and Primalist in general. And Wheezy for helping me level a mage to get ready for Runemaster patch. All of you are making last Epoch a blast for me, so much love. Take it easy, everybody. Gochiso sama deshita.